On my birthday, my brother texted, "Don't wait up, everyone's at my promotion party instead." 5 minutes later, Dad messaged, "By the way, I put the $4,200 dinner on your card. Hope that's fine." I just replied, "Noted." That night, I blew out the candles alone in a private dining room I'd reserved 6 weeks in advance, staring at 40 empty chairs around tables I'd spent hours planning. The champagne I'd ordered sat warming in ice buckets that had long since melted to room temperature. Waiters hovered awkwardly near the kitchen doors, unsure whether to start clearing or keep pretending guests might still arrive. My phone had been buzzing all evening, but I'd ignored it while setting everything up. I'd wanted to be present, to greet everyone as they came in, to see their faces when they walked into the space. I decorated it myself. 40 people, my entire family, my closest friends, colleagues who'd become like family over the years. I'd invited them 2 months ago, confirmed with everyone a week prior. Every single person had said yes. At 7:47 p.m., 23 minutes after the party was supposed to start, I finally checked my messages. My brother's text came first. "Don't wait up, everyone's at my promotion party instead." I read it 3 times before the words actually registered. Everyone at his promotion party instead. 5 minutes later, Dad's message arrived. "By the way, I put the $4,200 dinner on your card. Hope that's fine." I sat there in the dim lighting of the empty room, surrounded by balloon arrangements I'd blown up myself that morning, looking at the custom cake that said "Happy 34th" in elegant script. The restaurant manager appeared at my elbow, clearly uncomfortable, asking if I wanted to cancel the order or if people were running late. I told him people weren't coming. He started to apologize, to offer something, but I cut him off. I asked him to bring me a single plate of everything I'd ordered for the menu, one of each appetizer, one entree, one dessert, and to please, for the love of God, leave me alone to eat it. I typed back 2 messages. To my brother, "Noted." To my father, "Noted." Then I sat there and ate alone in a room meant for 40 people, surrounded by decorations I'd hung with my own hands, drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than most people spend on groceries in a week. The cake sat on its table, candles unlit, while I methodically worked through courses of food that had been meant to feed dozens. Around 10 p.m., the messages started coming in. From friends asking where I was, from cousins saying they'd just heard about my party and asking why I hadn't invited them, from my mother asking why I was being so dramatic about a simple scheduling mix-up. Scheduling mix-up, as if 40 people accidentally ended up at the wrong party. I started piecing it together from the messages. My brother had gotten promoted to VP at his company 3 days ago. Apparently, he decided to throw a celebration dinner tonight at the exact same time as my birthday party, a party he'd confirmed he'd attend just a week before. He'd told my father, who'd told my mother, who'd told the extended family. They'd all agreed to go to his party instead. Not a single person had thought to tell me. Not one person had called to say they couldn't make it, to apologize, to give me the chance to reschedule or at least cancel the reservation and save the money. They'd just decided collectively that my brother's promotion was more important than my birthday. And my father had taken it upon himself to make sure I paid for whatever goodbye drinks or appetizers they'd apparently had before leaving for my brother's event. I asked the manager to box up all the untouched food. He brought me what felt like 50 containers, enough food to feed me for weeks. The cake went into the largest box, candles still unlit. At midnight, sitting in my apartment, surrounded by expensive food and a birthday cake I'd never gotten to cut, I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I opened my laptop and started going through files. See, I work in forensic accounting. I specialize in finding financial discrepancies, following money trails, uncovering fraud. It's what I do, and I'm exceptionally good at it. For the past 3 years, I'd been noticing small things about my family's finances that didn't add up. Little comments from my father about investments, inconsistencies in what my brother claimed to earn versus what he actually seemed to spend, odd requests from my mother about tax documents. I'd never looked into it. Family was family. You didn't investigate family. But sitting there alone on my birthday, surrounded by evidence of just how little I mattered to these people, I decided maybe it was time to start. The first thing I found was almost too easy. My father had been managing a trust fund my grandfather had set up before he died, a trust meant to be split equally among all the grandchildren when the youngest turned 25. My youngest cousin had turned 25 8 months ago. The trust should have been distributed. It hadn't been. I dug deeper. The trust had been worth approximately $890,000 when it was supposed to be distributed, split 7 ways. That should have been roughly $127,000 per grandchild. Instead, I found transfer records showing that $450,000 had been moved into an account in my brother's name 6 months ago. Another $200,000 had been transferred to an account my father controlled. The remaining $240,000 sat in the original trust account untouched, while my father continued to tell the family that there were complications with the estate and distribution would happen soon. I sat back and stared at the screen. My father had stolen from his own grandchildren. My brother had taken money that belonged to his cousins, to me, to our entire generation, and they'd done it so casually, so easily, clearly never expecting anyone to actually look. I kept digging. My brother's promotion was real, but the position wasn't quite what he'd been telling people. He'd been claiming he was now VP of Operations with a salary north of $300,000. The actual title was VP of Regional Sales Support with a salary of $140,000. Respectable, sure, but not the massive leap he'd been celebrating. The apartment he'd just bought, the penthouse he'd been bragging about, that my parents had thrown a party for last month, had been purchased with a $600,000 cash down payment on a salary of $140,000, with student loans still on his credit report. The math didn't work unless you added in the $450,000 from the stolen trust fund. Then I found the credit cards, 3 of them in my name that I hadn't opened. The applications had been submitted 2 years ago using my information but listing my parents' address. Someone had been intercepting the statements. The cards were maxed out, a combined total of $89,000 in debt. The charges were all over the place: furniture stores, electronics, restaurants, a golf club membership, a down payment on a boat. I pulled up my credit report. My score had tanked. I had late payments, maxed accounts, collection notices, all for cards I never knew existed, for purchases I never made. I spent the next 3 hours going through everything I could access. By 3 a.m., I had a complete picture. My father had been systematically stealing from the family for years, using his position as the financial manager everyone trusted. My brother had been his accomplice and primary beneficiary. Between the trust fund theft, the credit card fraud, a series of loans from elderly relatives that were never repaid, and several investment schemes that consisted of taking money from family members and simply pocketing it, I estimated they'd stolen close to $1.2 million over the past 4 years. And I could prove it, all of it. Documents, transfers, emails I pulled from an old family computer I'd helped my father set up years ago and still had remote access to. Everything. At 2:30 a.m., I did 3 things. First, I compiled everything into a single comprehensive document: transaction records, emails, credit reports, forged signatures, everything. I made it clear, simple, impossible to misunderstand. I included a timeline, amounts, account numbers. I highlighted every theft, every fraud, every lie in bold red text. Second, I uploaded it to a file-sharing site with a simple auto-generated link. Third, I opened the family group chat, all 40 people who'd gone to my brother's party instead of showing up for me, and I posted the link with one line: "Watch this before sunrise." Then I went to bed. I woke up at 9 a.m. to 247 missed calls and over 400 text messages. The family chat had exploded. I scrolled through it over coffee, eating leftover birthday cake for breakfast. My cousins had opened the document first. They'd started asking questions.
By 4 a.m., my aunt had called my father demanding answers. By 5 a.m., the entire family was awake and in the chat, and my father was trying to claim the documents were fake, that I'd fabricated everything out of spite. My uncle, who works in banking, had pulled his own records. He confirmed every transaction I'd listed that involved his accounts was accurate. My other aunt had checked her mother's estate records and confirmed that the lost inheritance I'd mentioned had indeed never been distributed properly.
By 6 a.m., my brother was in the chat, furious, threatening to sue me for defamation. I'd screenshot his threat and sent it to the group with a simple response. You can't defame someone with the truth. Also, you misspelled defamation. By 7 a.m., 3 of my cousins had contacted lawyers. My mother was calling me every 30 seconds, leaving voicemails that alternated between begging me to stop tearing the family apart and screaming that I was ungrateful after everything they'd done for me. By 8 a.m., my youngest cousin, the one whose 25th birthday had triggered the trust distribution that never happened, had filed a police report for fraud. I ignored all of it, made myself a proper breakfast with the leftover food, and actually finally felt something like peace. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. My father tried to claim he'd been planning to distribute the trust money soon and had only borrowed it temporarily for family emergencies. I posted the receipts from my brother's penthouse purchase in the chat. He stopped trying to explain after that. My brother attempted to rally support, claiming I was jealous of his success and had always been bitter about his accomplishments. One of my cousins responded with a simple calculation of how much money he'd stolen from each of us per day for the past 6 months. The chat went quiet after that. My mother tried a different approach, calling my friends, my colleagues, anyone she could think of, trying to convince me I'd had some kind of breakdown. One of my friends, who happens to be a lawyer, called me to ask if I needed representation. When I explained what had actually happened, he offered his services pro bono for any family member who wanted to pursue legal action. The restaurant manager from the venue called me around noon. Apparently, my father had called to dispute the $4,200 charge, claiming it was fraudulent. I'd calmly explained the situation, forwarded him the text message where my father admitted to putting the charges on my card, and asked if he'd be willing to provide a statement if needed. He said absolutely. By day 3, the family had completely fractured. Half were demanding my father and brother face legal consequences. The other half were trying to play peacemaker, insisting we should handle this within the family and not involve authorities. I stayed out of it entirely, letting them fight among themselves. My cousins set up a separate group chat without my parents or brother. They asked me to join. I did. The first message I saw was from my cousin thanking me for finally exposing what she'd suspected for years but could never prove. Turned out I wasn't the only one who'd noticed things didn't add up. Others had questioned the delays with the trust fund, the discrepancies in various family financial arrangements, the way my father always seemed to have explanations that sounded good but didn't quite make sense. But he was the patriarch, the one everyone trusted with money matters. No one wanted to accuse him without proof. Now they had proof, mountains of it. The credit card fraud alone was enough for criminal charges. My father's theft from the trust fund was a felony. The forged loan documents from my grandmother before she died opened up a whole additional can of worms. My brother's knowing participation as a beneficiary of the stolen funds made him complicit. I filed my own police report about the credit cards. Then I contacted a lawyer about identity theft and fraud. Then I started the process of freezing my credit and disputing every fraudulent charge. My parents' attorney called me on day 5. He opened with some nonsense about family loyalty and asked what it would take for me to make this go away. I told him I wasn't the one making anything happen. I'd simply provided information and other people are choosing to act on it. If he wanted someone to negotiate with, he should try the 3 cousins who'd retained lawyers or the district attorney's office that was apparently now reviewing the case. He'd sputtered something about how I was destroying my family over a birthday party. I corrected him. I was holding people accountable for fraud, theft, and identity theft. The birthday party was just what made me finally look at what I'd been avoiding for years. Then I hung up. The birthday cake lasted me 5 days.
I ate a slice every evening, sitting in my apartment, watching the family chat descend further into chaos. On day 6, I posted a final message in the group. For anyone wondering, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. And yes, I'm available for my usual holiday dinners and family events, the legitimate ones where people actually show up for each other. See you at Thanksgiving, maybe.
Then I muted the chat and went back to my life. My brother's penthouse went up for sale within 2 weeks. Turns out, when banks discover your down payment came from stolen funds, they have opinions about that. My father hired a criminal defense attorney. My mother moved in with her sister, claiming she couldn't bear to look at my father anymore, though whether she was actually upset about the theft or just about getting caught remained unclear. 3 months later, I got a check for $127,843.17. My portion of the trust fund, finally distributed properly, with interest. It arrived with no note, no apology, just a form letter from the estate attorney handling the distribution under court supervision. I deposited it, added it to my savings, and took myself out for a birthday dinner. A proper one this time, at a nice restaurant with friends who actually showed up. We laughed about the absurdity of it all, and someone made a joke about how I'd thrown the most expensive party no one attended in history. The cake at this dinner was store-bought, simple, nothing fancy. But when I blew out the candles, surrounded by people who'd chosen to be there, it felt a hell of a lot better than anything that empty room full of balloon arrangements could have offered. My father ultimately pleaded guilty to reduced charges and got probation plus restitution. My brother paid back his portion of the stolen money in a settlement to avoid criminal prosecution, which required him to liquidate most of his assets. The credit card debt in my name was cleared, my credit restored. The family never quite recovered. We're civil at events, cordial in group settings, but the trust is gone. Too much was revealed, too many lies exposed. Some relationships are broken beyond repair. But sitting here now, almost a year later, I don't regret any of it. That night in the empty dining room taught me something important. Being alone isn't the same as being abandoned. And sometimes the worst thing someone can do is show you exactly how little you matter to them. Because once you see it clearly, you can finally decide what to do about it. I didn't tear my family apart over a missed birthday party. They tore themselves apart through years of lies, theft, and casual cruelty. I just turned on the lights so everyone could see what had been hiding in the shadows all along. And honestly, that's the best birthday present I could have given myself. The truth and the freedom that came with it.